There is a way to go beyond the impossible, go beyond the logic, human logic. And that's a radical thing to say, but let me start with my son's story when he was perhaps 8 or 9 years old. At school, he was reading a book, a short book, where the guy was a slave, perhaps rowing a boat or something like that. And he's confined, but the key point of the story is that my son took it in such a way that this guy has his mind which could be free. In spite of the fact that he's a slave, his mind doesn't have to be confined. And at 8 or so age, I thought that was very profound. And after going through difficulties in his life, not graduating from the college by a few points, and not succeeding this and that, he kept his going with the spirit, possibly related to that comment that he made when he was 8 or so years old. Given the impermanence, given the difficulties, there's still a way. That's a liberation. And as human, kicked out of the Garden of Eden and using the words and logic, we may think what's in the mind is everything, but I've been talking about that's not it. The mind has its own universe, but there's vast universe surrounding, including our mind, which is the laws of universe manifesting every moment. So it's a miracle, as I often think about it, that we exist here, and we know we exist. That's already a miracle. And to the point that we can trace back to the history by the record from the earth that we are born as a living species and evolving from the amoeba to the plants, to the animals, to the monkeys, and then the humans with the brains, and then on and on. So it's an evolutionary process, and whatever the reason, we start to use the mind at a certain point, and before that was the Garden of Eden. We are like animals, and no complaint, no psychological suffering. So there's no impermanence, there's no imperfection, because they're just following the law of nature. So there's a case of the slave find the way. And my son's case, he is evolving as I see it. Perhaps possibly still remember that slave story, being free-spirited. And he's challenging and moving forward and accomplishing, if that's the human term, to go over the hurdles. But if we have the sense of imperfection, but find perfection in imperfection, it is like a slave, but free. How can it be possible? That's beyond the mind. It's a realm of the spirituality, if that's the word. Or I can talk in scientific terms, perhaps, because there's laws of the universe that's manifesting everywhere. As a result, there are hurdles, as the human may see it. The mountain may erupt, an earthquake may happen, the climate may change, a meteorite may hit. But that's part of the nature. And the nature is quiet, prevailing all the time. We may revere appreciate the nature with beauty and the food and everything comes with it, the beauty of it and the food of it, and the fact that we are alive as a miracle. And then we die according to or following the laws of nature. So we are identified with the law of nature, or you can call the law of nature as God. And you may not like the term when I say identify with God, but you can say that God's living within to make us alive, laws of nature. And if we find that universe of how the laws of nature is manifesting and be one with it, instead of confined in the mind as a slave, it's like a bird in the cage, nowhere to go, but realize there's door open. Liberation, even under the severe difficulty. How can it be possible? I think that's also found as a history of human with all the miseries, and we still keep on moving forward with all the dictators, the famine and the war, psychological despair. But still, for example, I can think of music like a Bach, as if out of nowhere, as if the sound of the universe, or Picasso. Well, some of the names, some people like it or don't like it, depending upon what you've got. But there's some talent in us, whether it's music, painting, or else, anything we do. Even to the slave to become the leader of Roman Empire, leaving the words of wisdom and move on. So, perfection even under imperfection. Because laws of nature are the perfection, if you can use such a term, because nothing can be going against laws of nature. It's the absolute being, absolute state, absolute event, whatever comes. And under the severe difficulties, being a slave, being confined, as much as Picasso, Bach, or anyone, scientist, politician, managers, whoever, even to the level of the peasant, there's that feasibility, possibility, and of course many of them may not make it. That's part of the nature, but still we may find under the difficulties that we can be identified with that laws of universe and be free, liberated. That's perfection within imperfection, and at the end there's no imperfection. It's just a process, learning to bring out the wisdom and the evolution to continue as it is meant. And if we can identify with that by losing self, ego, no self, and be with that unknown force. You cannot name it and feel it, but it's there. That's the absolute power that we can relate to and to find the path even under severe difficulties, to the point that we can enjoy, feel compassionate, to go through all the difficulties in life. May all beings be happy to be with the laws of nature. Thank you.